an institute which is amongst the top 10 institutes of India and which is awarded for excellence in outstanding placement. It's a matter of privilege to have with us Mr. Pawan Chaudhary, who is amongst the greatest contemporary thinkers of India. Mr. Pawan Chaudhary is an Indian writer, TV talk show host, TEDx speaker, and CEO of Vigon India, a French multinational company which is in healthcare. When he joined Vigon in 1997, he was amongst the youngest CEO to help the multinationals in India. Sir has also written many books on wisdom and on different subjects, including social reforms, such as How a Good Person Can Really Win and many more books. Mr. Pawan hosts the Nation Building TV program on social and civic reform, Hum Aise Kyun Hain on Doordarshan, and he writes a popular column for Times of India on civic reform. Mr. Pawan has also taken lectures at the Indian Institutes of Management at Ahmedabad and Lucknow, and frequently addresses the senior management of the several leading companies across the world. May I invite Sir to please take over the session? Welcome, Sir.
Thank you, Lavina ji. Pleasure being with you all. And I hope the young people who are joining this session are fully awake, because I know that this generation works till late and gets up late then. And this habit of being an owl, you know, there are larks and there are owls. This habit has got a further stimulus through the lockdown which we have seen in the last nearly 60 days. So good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is awake. Let me start by telling you, giving a context on how the world has changed and how these changes have been recorded and how they have interrupted business cycles for good and for bad. So if you look at what we can learn from the past and use that learning to illuminate the path forward, I would like to talk to you about the Black Death. Black Death was a plague which came in the 14th century in Europe, and it killed millions of people. This demographic correction, lot of poor people primarily dying, had certain changes it inspired in the power structure. Earlier, it was the landlord, the agricultural landlord, and all the peasants under him were like slaves. But because now the number of peasants reduced, they had better bargaining ability. That was how the power structure altered. Also, the economy started changing, because now there were less mouths to feed. So agriculture, which was earlier concentrating only on growing grains to feed these mouths, started growing cash crops also, which were exported. International trade started, and not only exchange of goods and services started happening, but exchange of best practices like management and banking processes emerging in Italy. They started percolating to other countries. Also, some industries surely got hit. One of the reasons several industries got hit was conspicuous consumption was frowned upon. That means you could not now show off your wealth. Even the height of the heels in ladies' sandals was now regulated. Those sandals were expensive sandals, so you could not have more than a particular height in your uh, uh, as your sandals heel. The sandal could not breach a particular height. The lead industry also declined because lead was used in making fine, expensive utensils for glazing those. That also declined. So you saw cash crops going up, prosperity increasing, at the same time exchange of best practices, but some industries declining also. Similarly, around the same time, the miasma theory was very popular. The miasma theory was that foul vapors arise from the earth, from the soil, and they cause disease or plague. This was dodgy science, but it was the governing theory. So, millions of square kilometers of pavements were sealed and cemented with the help of flagstones. So this industry grew in a big way because of this dodgy theory. Similarly, cholera, later on which came, that brought in zoning restrictions. And zoning restrictions also brought fortunes for some and failures for others. Even today, the white backgrounds which you see, the white, well-lit places which you see, they are actually reminiscent of the tuberculosis era. In the tuberculosis era, white, light-filled sanatoriums became the way to fight, or let me say they were emblematic of fighting the infections. So those tiled bathrooms, those light-filled rooms, these are reflective, or these got inspired largely by the tuberculosis era. So you can imagine rats, when it was discovered that the bubonic plague has been caused by the rats, then the foundations of homes, drain pipe designs, their thresholds all changed. New industries came, or real estate moved to new areas. What is true of real estate I have just shared with you is also true in other sectors, and it is also true till date. SARS came in China. It was tragic, but it also gave a very strong impetus to online shopping. Online shopping grew in China after SARS. So chaos in the business world, which we are seeing today, is also a ladder. Only thing is that maybe new people will ascend these ladders. Some may come down also. Sensitive, pioneering, well in tune with the times, and having a good lens towards the future, those kind of people will do well. Those who are phlegmatic, who are theoretical, who are not pulsing the market may fall. Another thing I'd like to tell you, that sometimes some communities get a chance during chaos to ascend the ladder of prosperity and success, but they miss it. One such community was the nurses community in 1918. In 1918, when the Spanish flu came, soon it was evident that the nurses are willing to risk exposure to the virus much more than the doctors to treat the patients. That means nurses were braver, more courageous, more giving, sacrificing as far as exposure to the patients was concerned. Their stock started rising. Nurses in the power structure could have ascended the socio-economic ladder also. However, they decided to push their rise in the political framework. Till then, women did not have the right to vote. And it was said that woman's finger is good for a wedding ring, but not good for a ballot. She is not fit for the toxic vapors of politics. She is too noble and sublime. And her getting a vote in her hand will make families fall apart. Because if there is cross voting, then that could lead to divorce. Nations also will become weaker. Those were the logics which were given. But the women's movement for adult suffrage was strong and made much stronger through nurses' rising status. And that push went there in liberating the woman. That push could also have gone in the socio-economic field simultaneously. It could have liberated the woman and brought another empire of nurse entrepreneurs, but it did not happen. So you have to also see that you are aligned with the right groups, the right people, and you take advantage of all this chaos, this unfortunate chaos, because this unfortunate chaos doesn't mean misfortune for everybody. Today also, the following industries are going to rise in the mid to long term: healthcare, medical technology, online gaming, telecom is already rising, entertainment, hygiene and personal care, e-commerce, domestic manufacturing, and edtech. All this is going to rise. There are some businesses which are falling or will fall further: tourism, aviation, oil, hospitality, automobile. They are all falling. Some of them are also falling undeservedly. For example, poultry is falling because of false news, because of fake news that the virus can be transmitted through poultry. So 200 crores every day the poultry industry is losing in India. Newspapers are also falling, mostly because of fake news, because it was said that the paper can carry the virus for a long time. Partially fake. So we need to ensure that our businesses stay immune to any adverse propaganda, and we are hooked on to how the entire complexion of the market is changing, and this market, the complexion, cannot be seen without going a little deep into history, as well as going and trying to fathom the socio-economic grain of the society. And here I urge you to look at liberal sciences. Did you know that marketing, which the students who are here would have studied in their management, actually comes from, is the daughter of economics, psychology, sociology. HR is the daughter of philosophy, sociology, and psychology, and so on. So you have to go to the roots of these sciences, to the liberal sciences, and there you will catch the wavelength, because there it is most audible. And interpretations of that wavelength you will see surfacing in the market. So this is what I wanted to say about the mid and long term, about how businesses should make sure that they are not a casualty, but they capitalize on the chaos. As far as short term is concerned, for businesses, survival is important. So survival means safety for the employees, economic safety also, and physical safety also. Second is cash. So I always say sales is vanity, profits is sanity, and collections is reality. Sales is vanity, pride. What a big turnover you have. Profits is sanity, profits is wisdom. And collections is reality. Cash which comes in, which is there in the bank, is the reality. Because profits also you can show by inflating sales in your books. So cash is what you should concentrate on. Third thing is, for goods and many services, the supply chain has to be kept moving. Fourth is demand. Why demand is important and how it can be perked up, or how you can do advocacy of a kind that the government listens to you and helps you have continuing demand. And lastly is ecosystem management, because many players have become even more important. Government today has become even more important. So these are the 5 things which I would like you to concentrate on for short-term survival. Safety of employees, economic and physical, cash, supply chain, demand management, and ecosystem management. So this is broadly what I wanted to say about the business, insights on business in the current context. And I would like to also tell you that in this pandemic, there is another ally we have, which earlier pandemics have not had. Can you guess who is that ally? Technology is that ally. So retail will be hit, but it will not be hit so much, because there is online retail also now. Earlier, during pandemics, retail used to get a sucker punch. It used to go into coma. But because of online, you are getting your groceries, Because of online, you are getting your entertainment streamed in. So online is another foot on which retail is standing. Technology is helping us in other ways also. Let us look at refrigerator technology. Till 1918, when the last plague came, refrigerators were not there. Not that refrigerators were not discovered, but refrigerators were exploding. And that's why they had not reached homes. Also, a refrigerator used to cost double of a car. That's why also it was very expensive. And the safe gases to run the refrigerator were not yet discovered. But today, because of refrigerators, also retail is still alive. So this is the good effect of technology. There will be also attacks because of technology, because technology is also now changing a lot. Whether you look at blockchain, IoT, big data, AI, all this is getting adapted to the new circumstance. So it will also change things. That doesn't mean that everything what is there will go. Change is inevitable, doesn't mean change will obliterate the past. When the internet came, people said that now all buying and selling will happen on the internet, malls will collapse. Education will happen on the internet, institutes will collapse. But that did not happen like that. Shopping started happening on the internet, but malls also continued. Education started coming on the net or through the net, but schools and colleges and institutes also continued. So change will be far-reaching, but that doesn't mean everything of the current will be obliterated, which is why we should know what to hold on to and what to allow to let go. We should not take our final stance right now. This is not the new normal. This is the new flux. We are still in flux. And we should be gingerly placed here. We should not cast our feet in stone here. We are looking at the market, how it is changing, society, how it is changing, how the interplay is happening. We are betting a little, but we are not putting all our money on a particular course of action, because right now is still not the new normal, it is the new flux. So another point I thought I will discuss is about startups, and particularly startup funding, because most of the startups which were robust pre-COVID have suddenly gone into a near stupor. So in startup funding, don't cast your net too wide to get startup funding. Ignorant casting of the net is usually a wide casting of the net. Look at the gene of the investor who you are approaching, the genre of the investor, and the geography of the investor. Gene means, by gene I mean, at what stage of the business he invests. Is he a venture capitalist, or does he go for Series A or B? So align the stage at which you are with the target audience of investors who you are pitching to. Genre. Does he invest in product lines or services like yours or not? Those investors are more likely, of course, to invest in your sector, in your business also. And last is geography. Try to find an investor who invests in your geography, who has invested companies in the neighborhood, neighboring cities at least, or at least in the country. So the 3 G's of finding the startup funder is gene, genre, and geography. Now I would like to come to the second and last part of my session. And after that, if there are questions, I'll be happy to take. So far, I spoke about insights on business in the new context. Now I would like to tell you about insights on life. So, one of the important insights on life, whether you are successful as a businessman or as a professional or not, is that happiness should not have only one trigger. All your happiness should not come from worldly success only. Otherwise, the moment you are about to fall, or the moment up and down comes, a down comes, you will be extremely stressed. So your happiness should come from worldly success, but also it should come from some other triggers. Have you seen little kids playing when it is raining or after? They'll see a small puddle of water. They will go and jump in it and they will be delighted. So there is no competition there. There is no success there. They are just enjoying it. Enjoying with your friends, some good laughter, some ribbing, some delightful leg pulling, enjoying with your family, enjoying a good massage or a good meal or a good glass of wine. These are different ways of finding pleasure. And your happiness should not hinge only on material success. Otherwise, what will happen? You will get into this game of incessant comparisons. All the time you will be comparing only on this metric. That do I have more money than that guy? Do I have more power than that guy? Do I have more fame than that guy? And often that guy comes and stands like a ghost in your house. It could be a friend of yours, a brother-in-law of yours, a competitor of yours, usually a friend or a good acquaintance. So let us imagine you have 25 crores or 50 crores of wealth. Imagine. This is enough to live a good life in India. However, there is a relative of yours who has 500 crores of wealth. Now, if you will start comparing, or even your family will start comparing, often the family starts comparing first. They start admiring that 500 crore person a lot. They will say, oh, unke kya kehne? Unki to baat hi alag hai. And things like that. Now, it is also an invocation to the breadwinner that daddy aap bhi karke dikhao. Now, what has happened? Your 25 or 50 crores, which could have given you a nice lifestyle here in India, now you are all the time, the ghost of that person is there in your home. It can be your spouse, it can be your kids who are unknowingly challenging you. Daddy, show us one more trick on the pony. Now that person has metaphorically become a ghost in the house. Anything which happens, even if it could bring pleasure or unremitting mirth, it will bring comparison and you will feel smaller and you will not be able to enjoy. So don't hang all your happiness or pleasure on one metric, and do not start inadvertently, incessantly comparing yourself with others. Otherwise, you will miss the pleasure of your ride. So, this is one point I'd like to make. The second point I'd like to make, because you are only 20 or 45, between 20 and 45 is the age group. And I have often been told that I should have read your books when I was 20, when I was 25. Because now though I have made all the mistakes. For most people, old age, or for many people, old age is a junkyard of bad decisions. So there is a lot of regret. Please try to take your decisions wisely. And then your old age, surely it can have some regrets. I'll tell you where the regrets of these people are coming from. They may be big businessmen, they may be big professional or unsuccessful people. Those people who have not had many choices don't have so many regrets. But those who have had choices, or whose friends have done much better, whose near and dear ones have done much better, they have regrets. Regrets are on family life, career, education, relationships. These are where regrets lie. So, and Voltaire has said beautifully about this, that I also have regrets, but I don't dwell on them, I walk through them. But if you have a lot of regrets, you walk from one regret to another regret. That means you're watching TV and you will find a nice commercial coming, expressing the love between the father and the son. Father is taking care. You will suddenly have a regret. I did not take as good care about my kids. So, to avoid regret, you have to become a student of wisdom. And also understand that 500 crore gentleman I spoke of, his life, if closely looked at, will be quite similar to your life. Don't go by what he's posting on Facebook and social media about the plane they have hired and they are going for a vacation to a nice island. You don't know how much fights are happening in the plane. You don't know whether the son has become a drug addict. So you get the varnished view of other people's life. And you should always remember that and try to look at life around you and within you through lenses which have different focal lengths. And one of the focal lens which will help you have a completely good life from start to finish, or let me say from adulthood to finish, is the lens of wisdom. Another thing I advise all kinds of people, I should also tell you that happiness, I feel, is generally coming from work, love, relationships, and growth. These are the three pillars of happiness. So look at these pillars. Do you have good work to do? Are you growing? Are you having good relationships in your life to nurture? Also remember, rich are always not wise. In fact, rarely. There is a gentleman called Marcel Proust. He did a deep study of the rich. He was a Frenchman. He climbed the social ladder, reached the highest level, and he found that the rich are neither intelligent nor interesting, nor are they having very good manners or value system. So social graces were missing, interesting and intelligent and honesty. So wealth is usually a function of inheritance. Of course, hard work and talent also creates wealth. But risk appetite also creates wealth. In fact, hard work and talent are there among many people. But it is the risk appetite combined with luck which takes you where to that level of wealth. So the rich are not always wise and intelligent or honest or interesting. Similarly, the rich are not always happy also. Because when you are rich, you buy some possessions that alienates you from the common people. More importantly, when you're rich, people are asking you for the money often. So you have to say no very often, because of which relationships get severed. And you don't get the social affirmation which is required for happiness. Because as I told you, relationships are important for happiness. So rich get a lot of attention, constant attention. This is the plus which they get. However, many a time they do not have real relationships. They understand this is only a plastic surface. So I wish that all of you will be successful businessmen, will run your own companies, will employ many people, will have big empires. But even if you don't have, then also you should find happiness, because you know that happiness does not stand on one leg only of success, achievement, wealth, but also there are other ways to find happiness. And a person who's going to be happy from his 20s to his 90s is going to be a person who has found that multi-legged happiness. This is what I wanted to say. I'll be happy to take if there are any questions.
Right, thank you. Thanks for the insights. Nigam sir, would you like to ask a question? You wanted to ask before. Please unmute yourself.
I can't hear Mr. Nigam.
Yeah, Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was unmuting myself.
Yes, sir.
Pawan sir, welcome to this webinar. It was really a pleasure listening to you. The content and the layout was fantastic. The way you took us right from the medieval age to the present, telling us about the old pandemics and how they change life of people and how we have to cope up with that. The clarity, the cliches used by you, the choice of words were all fantastic. Every word of yours has been assimilated by everybody, I believe. Now coming to the questions. As the subject says, insight on business and life. So I would like to ask one question on business and one question on life. Now, the question on business is that you have said that a lot of industries like hospitality, like transport will go down, and surely they will. As of now, they're on a standstill. But as and when they start, there are going to be norms which we have to follow, like social distancing. Right? Now, if an aircraft flies only with 2/3 of its capacity, naturally the prices will go up. Same for the train, same for the hotels, same for the banquet halls, same for the restaurants. Now, this is going to have an impact on the costing of these businesses, which might even make them unviable. What are your thoughts on it, and how can one combat this practical problem of the business? This is the first on business. Once you are through with this, then I'll ask you on the life. Can I have your answer, please?
Okay. Thank you very much, Nigam Babu. You have spoken about the inflation which is likely to come. I fully agree with you. In these areas, inflation will come because you will require new costs to ensure asepsis, whether it is social distancing, or it is through PPEs, or it is sanitization. All this will add to costs. So this will be a very big challenge coming ahead. It will also be hit. One of the ways to handle it is that people will do less and less of this. You will notice that traveling, hoteling, leisure travel and all that, all is going to reduce dramatically. But there is a sliver of hope also. What is the sliver of hope? How will we not get into this extremely inflationary possibility, or the other equally dreadful possibility that we will not be able to travel. We will not be able to go to restaurants. This is also a dreadful possibility. You can avoid it, but it is a part of your life. It's a part of your enjoyment. So, what is that hope? Hope is that a vaccine comes which irrefutably takes care of the occurrence of the disease. That means it's a conclusive vaccine, like we have seen in the past. First of all, it should come soon. Secondly, it should come which completely wipes off the risk of this disease. If we do that, then this level of social distancing, this intensity of changing the architecture of our places to make them aseptic may not be required. Have I answered your question?
Oh, well, absolutely, sir. And I hope everybody would have gained immensely from this question. My second question on life, sir. You mentioned that life is going to change drastically and we have to look at avenues of happiness. Different to what we have today. The pleasure of today may not be the pleasure of tomorrow. But we as a country, Indians, are a very different, genes altogether. We are very much touch and feel people. I mean, we would like to go shopping for two reasons. One is for entertainment, window shopping, and second is to touch and feel the product before we buy it, which now will be banned. So how now coming to teaching? Now I am a professor. I enjoy taking my classes, and I enjoy patting students on their backs, which again will not happen because number one, it will be virtual, and secondly, even if I am in the class, I have to maintain that 2 gaj ki duri. So how do we adapt ourselves so much in a short span of 2 to 3 months that we become totally detached to our sentiments and work on it? I think it will be difficult for me at least to really do justice to my teaching without bringing in a very personal, maybe a touch and feel relationship. What are your insights on that, sir?
So firstly, let me come to the touch. Or touch and feel together. So we like to feel the fabric which we are buying, touch the product which we are buying, and so on. So it is possible that in times to come, if this doesn't go, we might have swatches. So we will go on online shopping, but we have a swatch of various fabrics here with us in my room, with me on my table. And I'm looking at the product, and it is made of a particular fabric, and the name is mentioned here, the code is mentioned, the code is reflecting there also, and I will feel it, and I will say, okay, I buy it. So methods like this have to be found. Some time back, 20 years back, when the printing had not advanced digitally so much, you remember we used to have a color book which had all the various colors and the composition of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and they had codes. So when we were pointing at a particular color, we used to say this is the code. The printer also had the same book, and he used to reproduce that.
It's still there. It is still there.
So it is still there. So we will find alternatives. As far as the physical proximity which is required to express relationships and to enjoy them and to communicate the authenticity of your emotion, sometimes words are not enough. You need to give a pat on the back, or you need to hug. So I feel our language will develop further so that we can communicate part of the authenticity through newfound words. When the Bible was written, in Bible there are only 3 colors. Do you think that there were only 3 colors at that time? No, there were many, many colors. But the vocabulary was limited. As man's vocabulary has expanded, his ability to express other colors has expanded. So our ability to express some emotions which we could convey only through a physical gesture will get replaced through our new lexicon, the new dictionary. Also, still that physical contact may be required from time to time. Like you said, without a pat, giving a pat on a student's back, I will not enjoy. Then you will find PPEs. You will find that people will have better and better PPEs, which are lighter, which don't suffocate you, and which can be worn. Maybe some designer PPEs may also come. So the young people in Taxila will go for those designer PPEs, but they will not have any tears. Like these days, the jeans also have tears. You know, they are cut at places, but PPEs, of course, will not have tears. But you will find some ways of interacting with each other.
So, as you said, change will be the only constant as ever. And so we'll have to adapt and change our lifestyle, our own methods of communication to make it interesting also, yet follow the principle of distancing and the other do's and don'ts that we have to do. Thank you so much. You have answered my question. Thank you so much.
Akhilesh sir, please go ahead and ask. Any other person or any other audience would like to ask anything, please type in the chat window or raise your hand.
The marketing and HR, these streams are, the parent stream is psychology and sociology, right? So that what we can say, the liberal art is very important for a management graduate also, right? In addition to the technology, so it becomes a multidisciplinary approach, right? So the multidisciplinary approach is very important. I'll request if you can really highlight a little more on this, or students will definitely get benefit.
So there was a guy called Raymond Hutchins. He was the chancellor of Chicago University at 29 years of age. He was such a bright man. And Hutchins said that students from school who enter colleges should not choose their discipline in undergraduation. In undergraduations, they should study the liberal sciences and classics, because these sectors tell you about life, about socioeconomics, the political side of life. And during these 3 years, he can be exposed to other streams also, science, engineering, etc. After these 3 years, he can choose which sector he wants to go. It was a great idea. This is maybe 50, 60 years back. But it got caught in academic politics and it was not executed. But today, the world is very fast coming to this conclusion that liberal sciences is very important. Frankly speaking, I have always been interested in liberal sciences, because the differentiation which I tried to bring in my approach, I was not from a premier institute, but as the introducer said, Lavina ji said, I became the CEO of a multinational much earlier than my contemporaries from premier institutes. Why? Because I looked at this socio-economic grain and I saw that how this socio-economic grain changes the market, and then to float your ideas on the tides which are coming in the market, you know where the origin is. Origin is in liberal understanding. Rather than stamping your will on the market, which is not possible, I found this to be a much effective method. And because my companies, I am associated with several companies, I sit on their boards, they also understood that my interest is bringing them also profits. They also encourage the interest. So that is why I feel that people who are not having bio background also have a very big role in the technology sector. Why? Because as you bring more and more technology, it brings the side effects of technology. And as you brings the side effects of, as the side effects of technology come, you need people who have a socio-psychological understanding. One of the side effects of COVID is work from home. Now, work from home changes the power structure also. Why? Now the boss is not always standing over your head. You are at quite a distance from him. So, gig economy is coming. That means same person will be working in 3 or 4 jobs. That means you'll have 3 or 4 people you report to, or 3 or 4 bosses. Now, if you have 3 or 4 bosses, the power comes to you and doesn't stay so much only with the boss. Why? Now those 3 or 4 bosses have to ensure that how they will attract you more than the others to do their job better. So what is this? This again, you have come in the socio-psychological politico arena. There is a tribe called Hokikomoris, people called Hokikomoris in Japan. Sometime I'll talk to you about that. There are some other questions coming. Let me just take a look at those questions, and I would, and if there is anything else from the faculty, I'll take that also. Have I answered your question?
Sure, sir. Sure. Absolutely.
So the other question is also like yours. That is the how can non-medical people get into the medical line, medical technology line. So let me share with you as my closing remark, or maybe I can take one more question after that, is some of the deepest insights in big data are not coming from engineers, are not coming from technologists. One of the deep insights in big data which has come recently, which everybody can understand, is about what is the most attractive flavor of pies to launch in US. Everybody felt that the most attractive flavor is vanilla, because the size of the pie was about 9 inches, big pie, like a big pizza, and vanilla was the fastest selling pie. Till one sociologist went deeper into this question through big data. And it said that it advised the manufacturer, he advised the manufacturer after the research, launch blueberry, cranberry, and these other flavors, raspberry. Launch these flavors in small size pies and put all your money in it. People said, why? He said, just do it. And he convinced. I'll tell you how he convinced. And those pies were launched. And today, the #1 flavor in America is not vanilla, it is blueberry. What did he say? He said, my big data is showing that vanilla is the second best choice for everybody in the family. So their first choice is maybe could be something else. But because they only large pies are available, so that's why they end up buying vanilla, because everybody accepts vanilla even if he is not in most love with vanilla. When you launch the smaller pies, then the other orders will start coming. So in a market which was flooded by vanilla flavors only, these new flavors came up. And he said, I found that data because I found that on days when the whole family was together, they were ordering pies. But on days when only one person or two people were there, they were ordering something else. They were ordering a blueberry yogurt, or they were ordering some olive pizza, you know. So why, when he went deeper into this, he came to the conclusion that vanilla is not the favorite flavor of America. Vanilla is the acceptable flavor to most of America. So these insights came from a non-technology person, and I have many, many such examples. In fact, the more technology will grow, the more will be the need for the philosopher, the psychologist, the sociologist, and the political thinker.
Right, sir. Kishore sir, you had a observation or a question? You need to unmute your mic.
Yes, yes. Like every time I speak to Pavan sir, I learn a lot, you know. But this time, you know, I'm really happy that not only me, hundreds of more are students, people who have joined us, they practically learned a lot. And thank you, Pavan sir. It was a great learning to all of us. Really enjoyed your lecture. And probably shortly, in case we have time, we wish to invite you for more webinars.
Sure, it was a big pleasure, and always, Kishorji, coming to your institute is like coming home. You are from my alma mater, and I wish you and your students all the very best. Rise and shine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye.